All right. So we are now having a conversation with JHNN or
Hello.
John.
Yes.
Welcome.
Welcome. Hello. Nice to meet you. Thank you for contacting me. It really
Yeah,
does mean a lot.
yeah. I'm excited about this interview because I honestly I've seen you in channels chatting, but I don't know much about you. So this is a chance for me and everybody else to get to know a little bit more about who you are.
Yeah. Well, yeah, my name is John. I use that name. I have a real name, but the reason why I don't use my real name is not because I'm not ashamed of it. It's just I don't like attention too much to naming names. I know it's a weird thing, but
Yeah.
I don't like the attention to it. So my mom just used the name John so that I didn't give people too much attention towards my name. So that's why I use the name John. But
Okay.
I'm from Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
Hmm.
Um, I started DJing in like 2008, and I started producing at the exact same time because I thought that's what you were supposed to do. But yes, I produced electro, and um, I kind of wanted to move more closer to dark wave. I don't know why that sound always interests me, but it always did. But anyways, I just wanted to produce, and then wanted to DJ, and I did a lot of gigs in Calgary to be a DJ, and I played a lot of places and played a lot of house music, but I got really tired of just being this DJ that played house music. And not that I hate it, it's just I love all types of music.
Yeah.
So um I I kind of tried to branch out and go into different scenes and meet new people, and wound up in more of the goth type of scene. And after that, like, would go to Dickens, which is another channel that people should follow, Dickens YYC, which is probably one of the biggest hubs of the industrial music scene in North America, I would say, because they do have the Terminus Festival, which is very
And
a lot
they
of
have a
people.
Twitch channel.
They do have a Twitch channel. It's
Okay.
Dickens YYC. They're trying to save their pub because
Okay.
of, obviously,
Yeah.
because of
Yeah.
COVID, and I've tried to support them as much as I can. Um, Other than that, like I have to, I have to make money as much as they have to make money too,
Right.
because I have to pay rent. So I started doing midnight shows on Twitch,
Hmm.
shows after midnight, because I didn't sleep well, and I always
Yeah.
was awake at weird times, and I just kept meeting more people awake at weird times, and it just snowballed from there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do midnight shows, and I also have a record label too
Oh yeah.
for it's very specific, but it is. The reason why I do this is because I feel like people aren't representing music in Alberta as well as they could be. So it's Alberta music that I really, really am a fan of, and it
Hmm.
makes it easier for me to represent just Alberta music because then it slims down the competition a lot more.
Right.
But I'm looking for more dark wave stuff right now, but doesn't mean I'm looking for it like forever. I want people
Right.
to like make whatever they want to make. I just want like good sounding music. So that's what I've been looking for the last, and I call it a collective because I think the whole record label thing is done. But yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah.
I'm a DJ. I make music, and I own a collective.
Okay. So what is that um, collective called?
The collective is called Dem Modest Kids, and
Okay.
I started it when like probably 10 years ago, and then I just me personally, I'm very picky of who I choose to be a part of the team. So I've
Mhm.
kind of been going into the scene and going to clubs and meeting new people and trying to find people who had the same feeling that I have for music and same energy of excitement for music. And it's very hard, especially
Yeah.
in Alberta, because a lot of people look at music as a hobby. So a lot of people are looking at me like, why do you care this much about this? Like, you shouldn't even be caring this much. Like, come on, just play all the stuff that's already out there.
Right.
And it made me sad because there's so much so many amazing artists I've seen in Calgary, and they all break up because they feel like no one's listening to them. And it makes total sense because there's this whole scene of people who just think local music is for hipsters or local music is for weirdos and all that stuff. And it
Yeah.
shouldn't be. It should be just local music in Calgary, you know? So
Yeah.
that's kind of what the whole DeModest Kids thing is about. It's like the reason why it got the name was because it's such a conservative province. And I felt like someone really angry would be looking at my label being like, damn modest kids, because they're just mad at how humble and honest and freeing and liberal they are. That's kind of where it comes from. It's a conservative place, but it's like there's the people here who like other things other than country and metal. Nice cat.
Yes.
Not that I hate metal.
I've been trying to keep her
I don't
away
hate
from the
metal.
screen, but
I do not hate metal. I'm not saying I hate metal. I'm just saying like there's such an abundance of metal and country,
right,
and a lot of punk in Calgary. And I'm not saying it's bad punk. I know there's more to Calgary and Alberta and other places than that. So I've been trying to be an advocate for it. So it's very, it's a lot of money. I don't have money.
Yeah.
And it's okay. I do it because I love it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I do these, is to bring more attention to, people who are in the scene, particularly those who rely on Twitch, for example, for income. And constantly got to remind people to say, that these hype trains and the bits and subs and all that aren't just, for fun of it. This is a livelihood for people. If you like the music and you want to keep hearing it, they need to be able to pay the electric bill to keep the computers on, and the internet and the heat in the winter and all. So
I totally get it, and I want to encourage people to do hype trains, and I totally get that. I also want people to just have a good time. Like I mostly, for me personally, I needed to just talk to people about music because like that's my channel. It's
right.
But when I'm not DJing, I'm sitting there taking requests from people wanting to hear what their music journey was or how they found the song or something like that. And then we just snowball from there, and it becomes this thing of like us going back and forth of memories of when we first heard this song or when we heard this song or, oh, I need to show you this song. So it's kind of like a session. It's literally an after party, but it's like, it's not like one of those after parties where you hook up with somebody or whatever. It's like those after parties where you're talking to your best friend about, like, you're just telling stories with your best friend till like 6 a.m. That's the whole goal of the whole thing.
Okay. That's kind of like, I try to go to Cold Waves every year. And there's always an after party downstairs at the bar. And of course, lots of people are, typical after party, but I usually end up finding, some of the artists just hanging out and we just go and have a chat. Like one year I sat at the bar just talking politics with Jack Danger from Meat Beat Manifesto for like an hour. It was just a fun little chat,
Oh man. Those moments are so good.
Oh yeah.
They're so good. Actually, so my name is JHNN. It comes from actually this Canadian band Mastercraft. But like even before that, they're in another duo called Death from Above 1979. And they had a side project called Mastercraft. And this was around 2006 when that whole Mastercraft thing came. No one was really doing that non-initials things. They were like pretty much the first to do that type of KRFT. I watched an interview and they said that, well, we needed to distinguish ourselves in this internet. Like we needed to show people that we're from Canada because Mastercraft is an actual Canadian craft company.
Okay. Yeah.
They showed us they were from Canada and also they needed to distinguish themselves. So their sound was, to me, one of my favorite sounds I've heard when I was like a little kid. But yes, I got my name from them. And it's crazy because full circle, I DJ'd for them in 2018. And this is what happens with all the DJs whenever you meet a DJ, you play for them, you open for them, and then you just like let them DJ or whatever, and then you just move on. Like some DJs just don't even really care if you're there. Some DJs are just like, we can talk for like 5 minutes, but I gotta go.
Yeah.
So, but them, they were like, why aren't you on stage with us? And I'm like, well, because you guys are performing. He's like, no, just get on stage. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And then they were showing me all their new stuff, and they were showing me all this, like, they just made it seem like a punk type of thing. Like they made it into this club thing.
Yeah.
And then we went backstage and we just talked for 2 hours just about like music, random stuff, drum and bass, like just everything. And it was crazy. It's like, this is like someone that like I kind of took my name from, and they're just so nice, and I'm just it shocked me. I'm not used to it, and to me they're like the highest to me. To other people they're kind of like, oh, they had that one song, but to me they're like the highest only because of the way their production sounded. I always wanted my production to sound that way. So it's just weird and cool how sometimes things can come full circle. And I'm really trying not to ruin things. I'm not trying to fanboy about this band.
Right.
But it's just, that's still to me a crazy moment. I like start to like freak out thinking like they like mastered my last EP. So it's like, what the fuck? Sorry. But seriously, it's like, what? So I don't know. Those are like moments I like being a musician, is talking and all that stuff. And I tried to bring that into my channel, talking to random people about just music and why they do what they do and all that stuff. And I'm trying to listen to people because people told me to get a mic. So I got a mic, and it has helped. I'm not going to lie. It has helped. I hate talking, but it has helped.
Well, I'll say more about that in a little bit. But while we're talking about music, you know, I've got to ask my standard question is, what does music mean to you?
It's I think the best meaning is it's a coping mechanism. Like whenever I had bad times, that's what I would do, is just listen to music for a long time. And whenever I was just angry, I would just kind of use music that way. Listening to music was the most important thing. Is like finding music is like therapy to me. It's just like going days and days looking for a song that just makes you so friggin' happy. Like that's therapy to me. So, and I try to do it in every single genre. I'm not trying to do it in one genre. Right now I'm doing it more in cold wave and stuff, but music does mean like a lot, especially now that I produce it. It means a lot more, because finding that feeling that you made something and you're so proud of it, that's like what I live for. And you're having fun with your music, with your own music. That's pretty much my whole goal, is to have fun with my own music before everyone else has fun with it. So so it means a lot. To say the least.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the common things that I've heard from people. You know, obviously everybody I'm interviewing is really passionate about music, or else they probably wouldn't be DJing on Twitch. They have different reasons, but that emotional connection is definitely one of them.
It's the greatest coping mechanism. It's that friend that like gives you the best advice without like making you feel like a horrible person. It's just it's like it communicates to you. If it's the right song, it communicates to you properly. I don't always look for that song. Sometimes I just want a song that has nothing to do with anything.
Right.
So, but it's when it's done right, it's amazing. So that's kind of what I love music for. And also, it's, for me, it's a bond. I bond with people because of music. I don't bond with people because of movies. I try to watch movies, I can't watch them. Try to watch TV, can't pay attention to them. The moment we start talking about music, I just tell them millions of things about music. I just spend hours talking about music because that's just what I like talking about. So that it's such a huge part of my life is music. Like, I'm not really like a collector person. I just want to hear music. Like, I'm like, oh, cool, it's on vinyl. That's sweet. All right, what else do you have? What else do you have? And I'm not like looking at their vinyl. I'm just like, what else do you have? I want to know. I want to know what music you have. Okay, wait, tell me about this. Tell me about this time. Tell me about the 80s. I never experienced this before. Tell me what happened when you listened to this for the first time, kind of thing.
So that kind of segues to what I was going to, what I wanted to get talking about right before this was that what I've been telling DJs for months is that what people really like, that of course everybody likes, you know, the music and everything like that, but they also like to hear stories, the connections, right? It doesn't have to be like, hey, you know, telling, you know, talking about the time you met so and so or whatever, but more about, you know, kind of what does this song mean to you, right? Or, you know, where did this, you know, come up in your life? Those are the really unique stories that, you know, no one can replicate, right? I mean, anyone can play music, right? But bringing in the story is that unique, you know,
it's like another dynamic.
Yes. Yeah, which makes everybody, you know, each DJ, you know, different, right? Even if they're playing the same stuff, they'll have different stories. So the advice for you to get a mic is definitely good.
Oh, it's great advice. But here's the thing: is some people just come to my channel just to listen to music. So I have to, now I'm at this point where I have to make sure that I'm talking at times that the song's done, and then I explain something. And I have like a command that's there to say, "Oh, do you want me to hear me talk?" And then right after that, I just talk and we have a good time. Like that's what I try to do. But I'm not trying, like, because I've been on channels where people are just talking right through the song, and it's like my favorite part, and I'm like, no, no.
Yeah, that is annoying.
Yeah, so it's a line that I'm trying to figure out, and a lot of people are still rude about it. I'm like, oh, you should figure out your mic situation. You should figure. And I'm like, listen, it's a process. Like, I'm learning this as much as you're learning this too.
Right.
So, like, you have to understand, I've learned how to sidechain this whole thing so it doesn't do anything. I'm learning how it doesn't pop. So it does make sense for you to be like, hey, that was loud. That's cool. But when it's like, hey, you should really learn how to do this job. And I'm like, okay, calm down. Like, Izzy, like, I'm not a professional.
Right.
I'm not a professional at anything. I'm a person who does an after party. So you got to take it like that. And you have to let me build and get better.
Right.
So,
well, yeah, I mean, what you do, and this is where I weave in a little bit of entrepreneurship, right? Is, you know, entrepreneurship is about trying little experiments, seeing what works and building from that.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what musicians and DJs do. And so one of the things I've been saying lately in my interviews is trying to convince, you know, artists and DJs that they're entrepreneurs. And it's not just because, you know, it's a cool label to have, but it's also there's a lot more support from communities and governments to support entrepreneurs than there are to support artists.
That's such a good
So
call.
if you look at yourself as an entrepreneur and look at the resources that are available for entrepreneurs, and then tap into that, that's a way, you know, for everybody, you know, that, you know, is out of work because all the clubs are closed, can, you know, find some help. So that's my little bit to try and convince everybody. Look for the entrepreneurial resources. Recognize that you are an entrepreneur. You behave like an entrepreneur, right? You do the same things that entrepreneurs do. It's just,
that's such a good call.
Yeah,
that's a very good call. Especially, I know it sounds irritating, but yeah, they think artists are people who just are doing it as a hobby.
right.
So when you add the entrepreneur to it, it makes them look at, it's annoying, but it does make them look at you differently.
Yeah.
Understanding that you're trying to tap into different fields and you're taking it as a business type of thing. I'm not trying to take it as a business type of thing, but that's what they look at it as. So I totally get that. That makes sense.
often start with a hobby. And a lot of times what happens is people like what they're doing and they ask for more, right? So somebody, maybe got a hobby of, baking cookies, right? And
Yeah.
then, they share it with their friends like, oh, can you make some more of that? I'll pay for it. And then it just kind of
Yeah.
goes from there, right? And that's not any different than, hey, I really liked, your set last night, here's let me sub, or let me go and buy, your LP from Bandcamp, or, whatever, right? It's the
Yeah.
same thing.
I mean, yeah, like I get the thing. I'm not, the thing is I don't want to like, I'm so weird with labels
Hmm.
because I want people to like come to me like they're your friend type of thing. I don't
Yeah.
want them to look up to me or, and I get the following thing is really important. I do want people to follow me and I do want people to like, I still have those goals of getting people to follow me and have fun like that, but I also want to protect the other people who are there to just like talk about music and have a good time.
Yeah.
So it's like that. That's another thing that I'm trying to figure out too. But on top of that, this was like such a last minute thing. Like I lost 2 jobs during the pandemic, and I couldn't
Oh,
really do anything about it. So I had to think quickly and figure out if I can do something with Twitch, and it snowballed and got somewhere
yep.
for this pandemic. And I still need to figure out how to make the best out of this because I don't know what's going to happen after the pandemic. So
Hmm.
I'm trying to think ahead, and
Yeah.
that's why I'm kind of trying to put my music out there as much, and I'm trying to put the label out there, and I want people to like. I think my ultimate goal for this is to get people to listen to music in their own city,
Hmm.
not necessarily music in Calgary. That's awesome that you're listening to music in Calgary, and I would love for you to check it out. That's awesome, but to just believe in your own city and listen to your scene. I've seen the Portland scene, how they support each other. It's unreal. The Denver scene too. Like
Hmm.
they have the whole thing with like DJ Slave One and DJ Tower and oh, DJ Race. I think his name is DJ Car Racer.
Rascar, race
Yes,
car or Rascar. Yeah. Yeah.
DJ Razcar. It's a whole group of people. They all DJ
Hmm.
together and they all support each other. And like to see
Yeah.
that and to
Same
see
thing
like
with Chicago.
Chicago's another one.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. LA is LA is there. LA is there, but we all know like what LA is like. It may seem like they're supporting you. They may not be supporting you, but and I'm not saying that the people I met in LA are amazing and I love them. DJ Star Noir is from the Bay Area, so San Francisco, I should say.
Hmm.
But still, like the support, the ones that like really matter is awesome. There's just
Yeah.
some that are just, but that's in every scene, right?
Yeah.
And I was trying to do that with Calgary. The
Yeah.
only person that's doing it well, no offense to the other people in Calgary, I love them. I've tried to get them to go to the house scenes and go to the house scenes in this place, go to the house scenes in this place, and get outside of your box because it's not going to get you anywhere if you're staying
Right. Right.
within Calgary on an international platform like Twitch. It's just not going to get you anywhere. And you guys are getting mad because your views are getting low. It's because
Mhm.
people in Calgary aren't paying attention anymore. And it sucks, but that's just how it is. Like with Dickens, the reason why I love Dickens is because they already had that industrial scene
Mhm.
supporting them with the Terminus Festival.
Yeah.
So they already had everybody being like, oh, we need to support this club because this club really brings out all these cool people from around the world and whatever. And clubs in Calgary have been doing that for a long time. It's just they think that Twitch was useless.
Yeah.
And that's a bad mindset. And now they're freaking out about, oh, will we ever get our jobs back or whatever. And so I try to do that in Calgary, but that's another battle
Right.
in itself. So
You know what? Do you are you familiar with the stuff that Martin Atkins is doing? He does like a free uh show, sometimes free, just kind of Zoom chats about touring, about the music business and all that kind of stuff. Um, So I think if you just go to like his main page, Martin Atkins page,
Hmm.
there's probably information there about
Yeah.
his, like he does a Monday evening Zoom. And yeah, that would be a great place for you to connect. Because it's not just him talking, right? It's everybody, chatting, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
anybody can chime in and say something. Um, and he'll have some ideas, because they did a festival, uh, stay the fuck inside, right? And the way he set it up was that local venues sold tickets and they split the revenue 50-50, even though it was online.
That
So they
sounds
each
actually really
had like
cool.
a unique code.
That's actually pretty cool.
Yeah. So I got the t-shirt, and on the back of it, it lists like, all of these clubs around the country.
Wow, that's actually
Yeah.
so cool.
And so
Yeah,
I know he's still trying to do stuff like that. So maybe
it'd be
connect
kind of
with
cool
him.
if he did that in like, regional areas. Because like for us in Calgary, like it's a lot of people like we're kind of like, I guess my friend kind of made this point where we're like Atlanta in a sense,
Mm,
where there's like the liberal the free type of attitude in
mm.
Atlanta, and then the whole state is like, the still whole state is conservative. So
Yeah.
the whole state is like completely doesn't match what Atlanta is.
Well, that's like here. I'm in Charleston, South Carolina. Um,
Oh
and
wow.
this is a very red state, but Charleston is much more blue. Um, the music scene here is, I call it, kind of hippie kind of music. I forget what they call it, but it's very much of a laid back hippie beach going uh kind of music scene here. Not my kind of thing, but
Yeah, no, like
but that's
that's
very different from the rest of the state.
like, we have the Calgary Stampede here. That's like one of the biggest festivals where everybody dresses up like a cowboy and
Mm,
wears all the stupid plaid and stuff. Sorry. I shouldn't get mad about it, but they wear plaid and they dress up as cowboys. And what the venues used to do is they would use that event to get people in to like do nightclubs and all that stuff. But the thing is that it also drives people to think that Calgary is that,
mhm,
because that's their biggest moneymaker is the Stampede. And it's so hard to tell people that there's the art scene in Calgary that's amazing. It's gotten so much better. We have a National Music Center that's amazing, even though corporations decided to call it Studio Bell because they bought the building.
mm,
But anyways, it's another story.
yeah.
But it's just the economy shouldn't just be based on oil, but it kind of is. And there's a lot of good things in Calgary, and it's just the sad part is how people give up so easily on the sorry, they give up so easily on the scene for what it is, and it just makes me really sad, because it's like, I get it, we're supposed to be this oil driven country or oil driven province, but I
Mhm,
also feel like we have such potential. If Terminus is in Calgary, Alberta, and it's one of the biggest,
yeah.
industrial scene type festivals. Well, why not? Why don't we have like another alternate scene in Calgary? I don't understand that. And there's a
Right.
lot of people who've come from Calgary, including certain people from
Mhm,
Skinny Puppy, are from Calgary
yeah.
and Edmonton. So it's
Yeah.
like they decided to go to Vancouver because obviously
Right.
for obvious reasons, they think there's a scene there. And
Right.
that's everyone's mindset here in Calgary, is not to build upon the scene. It's just to like, well, there's no scene here. Got to keep it corporate. So I've been trying to like go against the
Yeah.
grain for a very long time. So
Yeah. So I think that this is where more attention on Twitch is helpful, but
yeah,
also um, thinking, not necessarily labeling yourself as an entrepreneur, but thinking as an
Like one.
entrepreneur,
Yeah.
and looking for events that are specifically for entrepreneurs. So I assume they're in Canada too, but the Kaufman Foundation out of Kansas City is like the biggest supporter of entrepreneurship, and they sponsor this thing called 1 Million Cups, which is basically a Wednesday morning coffee 1 hour gathering
Hmm.
for the entrepreneurial community. And they're like in 150 cities or something like that. So I can imagine there will be one in Calgary.
They're
So that
like,
might be something that for you to go check out, and or sign up, to go, or just go to check it out, but then sign up to just present, say, hey, I want to help promote, the arts. Here's what I'm thinking, and then open it up to all the people there to say, well, here's what you can do, and here's somebody I can connect you to, and all that.
so
And
so I'm going to talk about the art scene in Canada in general. So we have this thing called Factor, which is a government-funded music program, and you have to have the right wording, of course,
Mhm.
and you have to have the right saying. But for the most part, the government funds your music career, and it helps radios and all that stuff, and it helps your label and all that stuff. Um, there are seminars on it that I've been to for the last
Mhm.
3 years, but it's a factor of like who you know and all that stuff. So it's not that I'm not aiming against that. It's just
Oh
that
yeah.
I do have an agenda, and I want to make sure I get this agenda across as not as quickly as possible, but just like getting something out there to the right people as much as possible. Because some of these people, not gonna name names, but some of these people just kind of expect you to go through a list of things that kind of the reason why it bothers me is because it's so old fashioned. And in America a lot of the music business, and why people go to the music business in America is because they encourage new ideas. And in Canada we just wait until someone in America does some random thing, and then they're like, oh sweet, well that's how we're going to do it from now on. So it's kind of like, I get that whole approach of being an entrepreneur and all that stuff. And there are people here who kind of do it, but it's still the fact that like the people who done it successfully are more business wise
Mhm.
than musician wise. And it's hard to like combine the two. And I've tried working with them, but then they're like, nope, 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 nope. So it's a nice kind of battle that I've been trying to face for
Yeah.
the last like 5 or 10 years. Like other than that, like I've been making music and I've been producing
Yeah.
for a very long time. And I've been trying to find people who have like-minded ideas and people who are forward thinking just like that. It's a very hard thing to come by in a very
Right.
conservative conservative province that
Right.
actually expects you to go to school and just go through all that stuff and go to Toronto just to make it across Canada. That's
Yeah.
that's one thing that always happens
So,
in
but
these
does
type of places. So
the value of going to other kinds of networks is just the more chance of meeting more of those people, right?
the right people,
If
yes.
we assume there's, a 0.5% of the population, fits what you're looking for, right? You're going to
Yeah.
find more people if you're interacting with 10,000 people versus 100 people. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, and
Yeah. So
I totally understand that
yeah.
idea, and it's not that I don't want to do that, and it's not that
Mhm.
I'm not opposing that whole idea. It's more that I'm trying to actually not just do that idea, but
Mhm.
also get other people's projects out.
Right.
Also make sure that I have enough money to live,
Right. Right.
because like I was working 2 or 3 jobs at one point. So it's not that I can't do it. It's I always look out for new ideas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Always look out for new ideas. And that's that seminar thing. I'm not against it. Obviously that's such a cool idea to have like businesses and
Yeah.
businesses within that go together. And I would love to look that up. I'm actually just more talking about how it is in a place that's very conservative and
Right. Right.
looks at entertainment as not a valuable industry.
Is that kind of part of your mission of the collective?
The mission of the collective is to, for in general, look in your area
Mhm.
and and find music that you're passionate about. It's in your area,
Yeah.
and people aren't looking for it enough. So my collective is kind of to be that entrepreneur person, but also to have those people who are just as inspired as I am to look
Mhm.
for music. And it's very hard to find people like that, especially if you're in Canada and if you're in somewhere like Alberta, if no one is representing your province, because they just assume that if you do represent that
Right.
province, you won't get business, which is, I just don't like it, because like it's the old saying of like, I remember when people used to move to New York and say they're from New York when they're
Yeah.
really from like Chicago or somewhere else. That's what they do in Canada a lot,
Mm.
where they say they're from Toronto, and then you meet them, they're like, oh no, I live in Manitoba, and you're like, well, why don't you just say you're from Manitoba? It's like, well, because it doesn't work here. I'm like, no, like promote Manitoba. I want to see
Yeah.
your scene.
Yeah.
That helps the scene. It helps people to go you scene and be like, wow, I didn't know there was this type of music here. So I'm I get it. I get that whole entrepreneur idea, and I'm not
Mhm.
opposing it. It's just it's the time consumption
Yeah.
mixed in with how much money I'm trying to make to survive.
Yeah.
That it's
Well,
another. Ooh.
it the thing I'm suggesting is just like it's a 1 hour networking event basically,
Mhm.
and you just never know like who you might meet that might help you. But
Can you
um,
also send me that
yeah,
link after? Like, can you
yeah,
send
yeah,
me
yeah,
that link
yeah,
on
yeah.
Messenger so I can like
I'll
actually
look.
check it out?
Yeah, I'll definitely look. And for sure, if nothing else, then once this does air, I can obviously easily put it in the chat too.
Oi, oi, that would
Yeah,
work too.
yeah. But yeah, I'll send it to you. I can Facebook it to you.
I don't want to go too on about this, by the way, because
Yeah, yeah.
then I just get into the zone and
Yeah,
then I
no,
just
that's all
start
right.
getting mad.
Yeah, no.
Because
But
it's
yeah,
not that I'm not against it. It's just
yeah,
that
yeah.
I have been looking for all these people for such a long time, and I have been trying to save up money to go to
Mhm.
Toronto, save up money to go to Montreal, save up money to go to Vancouver, and
Yeah, but now you can do this all online
oh yes, but a
yeah,
lot of those people in Canada want you to be there in person.
in person. Ugh.
Yeah. See, this is what I'm telling you about,
Mm,
like the backwardness of Canada is that they want you to see your face. They want you to like the whole like we had to send CDs for the last 20 years
mm,
to record labels, even though MP3s are just easier for people to get through
right.
email. And it wasn't until 2 years ago that they were like, oh, we accept MP3s as a thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that that's like a bad thing. Like obviously radio stations didn't really care about that, but like to send your music out across Canada, you would have to send an actual CD and you would have to pay that much amount of money because the industry is kind of 10 years behind. So that's the problem here is like I'm trying to get it moving a little bit more faster,
Mhm.
especially in Canada. And the only way for me to do that is to represent somewhere in Canada. And that's what DMK was kind of about. But also I want to make sure it's also about the music. So I want to make sure people aren't representing me just because I'm a part of the whole LGBTQ kind of diaspora or part of the whole, POC diaspora. I want
Mhm.
them to like look at the label and be like, oh wow, this music is amazing.
Yeah.
They don't know anything about, they don't know their gender, they don't know any of that. They just
Right.
know that whatever when they hear it, it's like, wow. So that's
Yeah.
kind of the thing that I've been trying to look for a long time. And it kind of it hurts me, but also it helps me that I have to say that I'm in this POC type of thing, or people
Mhm.
have to come kind of pull me into their thing just to show that there are people here
Yeah.
representing. But I get it. It's just we have been represented for such a long time. So I'm trying to work with this idea for a long time, and I'm trying to make sure that it's not just me not looking out for the POC people. obviously I do look out for those
Right.
people. I'm one of them, but it also has to be about the music, which is what
Right.
I fall
Right.
in love with at first, which is very hard for people to understand. I can't sign someone just because of their skin color. I gotta sign
Right.
them
Right.
because they're
Yeah.
very talented.
No, I
So
mean, yeah, I mean, the
so
music is, what the label or the collective is, right? It's
mhm.
it's a brand, if you will, and so it's got to kind of fit together. But this kind of segues into one of the things that I wanted to talk about, which is
Mhm.
that that lack of representation, at
Yes.
least on Twitch. There's
Yes.
a lot of DJs now that are starting to play more diverse music, you know, um, and then supporting uh, people of color and all that. But you don't see that yet in the people playing the music, right? The DJs.
Yeah. And that's a hard one because it's awesome to see people play music that's not like what they would
Hmm.
listen to or whatever. And I'm not, but for me personally, I'm going for the style of music.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't make sense for me to play hip hop. It just, for me personally, because I love hip hop and I love to
Hmm.
listen to it all the time. But for me, I feel like every time I've had to try and play that genre, the wrong people come to my
Yeah.
type of thing and expect me to play whatever they want to play.
Hmm.
And it's a like fine line when I get that whole representation thing because there are people who make the style of music I make who look like me,
Yeah.
who I worship, and it helps, but it's just kind of like it's kind of a hard thing because I know there's certain people who are trying to actually just play random music just to say that they have it.
Yeah.
And the representation thing is mainly about how someone already was making that music and that person, some other person who happened to be like a certain skin color. Well, I'm going to say it. So someone who, okay, let's do this example. Someone who is
Yeah.
black made rock music. All right, so a person um, who is white makes 10 times the amount of money. So representation matters
Hmm.
because if you're giving $10,000 to this person, even though the other person's making that much, even though like I'm looking at it in
Yeah.
money terms, but I'm saying like as a whole, like fan base and everything, people are like, I
Right.
don't like this artist. Even though that
Right.
artist created that type of thing, that's kind of where the representation's supposed to go. And a lot of black people are still on like hip hop. The reason why it was so powerful is because a lot of I don't want to like screw this up, but it's because a lot of kind of misplaced people in like ghetto areas
Hmm.
had had a voice for the very first time.
Yeah. I
And
kind of, when I look at it, I see it as sort of the the more modern punk, right? It
it
kind of
is,
comes from that same, you know,
I think the new,
origin.
yes,
Yeah.
I think they actually came in the same place,
Yeah.
punk and hip hop,
Yeah.
actually. Because I remember if you actually listen to, I read the Beastie Boys' um, like huge book, and
Yeah.
he was talking about when they were making hip hop, it wasn't a black or white thing. It was everybody was being involved. It was an
Hmm.
underground scene, and people were getting excited about it.
Yeah.
And it was this new genre of people just rapping, and they were so excited. And the Beastie Boys were just excited. The only thing that the only thing that happened is that they were trying to mock like jock culture, and then their song became jock culture, which is "Fight for Your Right" to party.
Hmm.
So the genre in general, it was supposed to include everyone at first, but the reason why it didn't is because a lot of genres have stolen from like African Americans to
Yeah.
be specific. So this representation topic was out there because a lot of people can be making that music, but they're not getting represented because a lot of people expect them to be like a hip hop artist, or they
Right.
expect them to be, they expect them to be anything else. And even as a kid, you get peer pressured into listening to hip hop. Like I've gotten peer pressured so much into listening to hip hop, or they say the opposite, which is rap is crap music, and that's even worse because now
Mhm.
you're silencing a voice.
Yeah.
So, um, with representation, I've been trying to not be this person who's like, like on this pedestal, being like, this is what my people are talking about. No, I'm just telling you
Yeah.
how like it kind of was like a thing where it's hard to be in my position. It's uncomfortable as hell to be in my position to make dark dark wave,
Yeah.
not dress gothy, because I that's not what I'm gonna do.
Right.
That's me personally. I
Yeah.
like the I like the music genre, but that's just not how I communicate how I like
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
I don't show you that. I don't show you that. You just come to my channel and we'll have fun.
Yeah.
We may recognize some songs and you may not, or you may show me some songs, or anyways, the point is that I think the representation is there for a reason, and I agree with it. I just think it's a very, very uncomfortable position for any person to be a representation of someone, because I'm not all black people.
Right. No,
I'm one of black people.
right.
So
Well, the
a
point here is
very,
that we need more,
yeah.
right? That
And it's hard because, like I said, it's very uncomfortable. It's
Mhm.
super uncomfortable being around people doing exactly what you want to do,
Yeah.
and trying to do it without making like a political statement about it. Like I'm not
Yeah.
trying to make a political statement about it. I have to now because now you're listening. So I got to be like, okay, so this is what's going on.
Yeah.
But I don't want to make it like that. I want you to come to my show to listen or whatever. But also I want people like me to not be afraid
Yeah.
to go outside their box, and you know like there's different styles of music, and that's how it should be looked at, as opposed to,
Mhm.
oh, you're messing up my culture. I'm not messing up anyone's culture.
Right.
I just
Well,
like my
yeah.
style. I like this style of music. So
Well, today there's so much blending of styles that,
yeah,
it's really hard to, you know, I mean, I don't even just, it's hard to describe like what, what do you call this music versus this music? Like, I don't know.
like,
Uh, you know,
so you know
like,
what I did actually.
yeah.
So on that note, so back in like 2016, I was noticing like this whole scene of people making synthwave in Calgary.
Mhm.
I was also noticing the elitist type of attitude where people were like, this isn't synthwave, this is this. This isn't synthwave, this is this. So my solution, because I was really tired of arguing, was to create this compilation called the YYC Synthwave compilation, which included all those people with different styles of synthwave.
Mhm.
But the reason, what makes a difference is I just called it YYC Synthwave, so I can mean anything. That can mean anyone who plays a synth that's inspired by the 80s. That's what I call synthwave to
Yeah.
me. So I'm doing the second one right now, and it's more cold wave, which is
Mhm.
more the post punk side of the 80s, I would say. So it's like post punk, new wave, all that stuff. That's what the second one's going to be, and it's going to be called YYC Synthwave again, just to piss them off. But the reason why I do that is because I don't think that should be the biggest issue,
Mhm.
is
Oh yeah. I
carrying
mean,
over genres.
yeah.
I don't know why people do it. I think we need to, I get it. Like you want to group things into the right kind of places. I totally get people, things can be misrepresented. Like I
Mhm.
know Skrillex has always been a topic in the dubstep scene of being like the one who ruined dubstep, but really he created like this different version of dubstep, and I wish they embraced it like that.
Yeah.
And they kind of did. But it was also a diss. They called it bro step.
Mhm.
But like the thing is that I wish it was like more of like, here's the dubby style or whatever. This is more on the low end stuff or something like that. But
Yeah.
the people kind of, that's another form of representation there
Yeah.
too. Is
Yeah.
the genres too.
as
So
I'm thinking about it, when we're talking about, what to label music, I'm thinking that we should look at it the same way that we look at gender pronouns.
it,
It's whatever the person
that's exactly what I
wants
do.
it to be, right? Respect it.
That's exactly how I look at it. I don't care that much. Well, I think I make dark wave. Everyone's telling me it's not that.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to call it then. You know, whatever
Call it
you want to
whatever you
say.
want.
Whatever you
Like,
want to say, I'm not going to waste my time to
yeah,
tell you what I think it is, because 99% of the time you're just not going to listen to me, and you're going to say that I'm some sort of poser. Like, it's like I'm not even trying to be anything. I'm just trying to make music I love.
yeah. And
So
yeah.
that's
And
actually
you
another.
you call it whatever you want. Like, Sark, I think, introduced me to them, but I'm really into Backwash. And
Yeah, they're
she
like kind of like,
describes it as, what is it? Dark wave queercore hip hop.
yeah.
It's like, okay.
It is exactly what it is, and it's cool to see hip hop in that sort of
Yeah.
sense, because it was mostly homophobic.
Hmm.
So it's cool to see that. And the reason why it was homophobic is not because it's more because of the scene in
Yeah.
general, of the people who make the music. The scene in general is very homophobic. People tried to call them out and they would get really pissed off. And it's old school way of thinking, and people have finally gotten tired of it. And it's cool to see that hip hop's gotten to that point. But it's for me personally, the style of hip hop, I feel like people are just recycling it from the 90s a lot.
Yeah.
Or if it's the new style, it's just not at that point yet. I think it got really big really fast, because hip hop is so pop culture now.
Hmm.
It's such pop culture now, and then people just kind of expect, once someone comes out with a hip hop song, they're just like, oh, I gotta get on it like right away, and they kind of like need it. They grasp on it to it because it's so big in pop culture right now. So when someone's doing something else, they kind of get mad, or they get uncomfortable because they're not used to seeing that face doing that. So
Right. Just like
so
the I don't know if you want to call it controversy, but the whole story with was it Nas X doing country?
and he was gay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's like, yeah, I just remember that being a story. And it's like,
he's it's still like it's such a, like, to me personally, I think it started in the 80s. There's still those kinks from the 80s that they have to work out. It's gotten a
mhm,
lot better to the point where LGBT are comfortable rapping, which is amazing. It's just it's the problem is, doesn't rely on what's good in hip hop, it's what's bad in hip hop. And the majority of it thinks that you have to be this hardcore person. You have to have this New York accent, even though you're from, like, LA, or you're from like Connecticut, or you're from like some random place in Denver.
yeah,
When these people are speaking like that normally, they're not putting on a show. And that's been the problem. And I think that they feel hurt because people are just trying to kind of making fun of it, or they're making more money off of it, making fun of the genre, which has been happening for a very long time.
mm,
But my personal taste is not that, just because
yeah,
I can't completely relate to it. It's a different sort of feeling. What I can relate to is their production, because I love their production. It's just more, it's more of like that. It's just, I really want to make sure that the music I listen to is just open. And like house music, I liked because I felt like you didn't have to say anything.
yeah,
You didn't have to say a word. You just had to feel. And with goth music, I like the fans, because the fans actually care about music.
hmm,
Crazy. Like, they
yeah,
actually die for music. And it's awesome to see that. I want that more than anything. I don't want elitist people just telling me what I need to listen to. I want these people, die-hard fans, to listen to new music. It's so much fun. And that's what I look for. And that's what I hope to be as a person in this scene, kind of not by my choice, but I am representing the whole people of color, alt black type of thing.
Yeah.
It's just, I can't do anything about that. That's what happens.
Well, I mean, it's just the start, a first step, right? You know,
Yeah.
once once one person, you know, is out there, then other people see that person and say, hey, you know what, I could do that too.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
it also, it's not like they haven't been there. Like Block
Right.
Party was around. There's Light Asylum, which is really good
Yes.
representation. Spoic Matombo from South
Oh yeah.
Africa. You know, there's representation there, here and there. Oh,
Hmm.
Oh Children, Oh Candy.
Yep.
Oh Candy, actually, MP3 Sark showed me Oh Candy. So
Mm.
that was pretty awesome. But there is people there. I remember the Black Kids too. That's an actual band, and they're like an
Oh yeah.
indie band, and I
Ah.
fucking I used to love that song they used to have. I'm not gonna teach your girlfriend how to dance. I don't know why. I was like a kid, and that was like my favorite. Oh, I'm gonna play it.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna play it sometime. But yeah, though there's representation. It's just, I think it's the fact that people think that it's only one type of person
Right.
or one type of face that listens to that type of music, especially when you live in North America, where it's like a melting pot from Canada to the US. These are two melting pots, and they're two different melting pots. And I wish people would know the difference, but it's kind of hard to when most of your media is kind of controlled by America. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's two different melting pots here, and it's cool to see. Like this is like the most I felt comfortable in a different scene than I have in a very long time, just because I can just listen to whatever the hell I want to, and they don't care how I dress. They just want to hear me play good music.
Yeah.
That's what I've been looking for my entire life. I just want people to listen to good music with
Yeah.
me. That is it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I think so. I got into new wave, you know, ages ago, back in the 80s.
When
And one of the things about that is that that was a scene that was from the very beginning very open and welcoming, you know, to everyone. And that of course came out of punk, which was also generally, you know,
oh yeah,
open and welcoming. Um, you know, so that's kind of just really all hasn't always fully stuck to it. So there's been times where I think like um, you know, the goth industrial scene has been very, very I don't know, snooty,
yep,
right?
oh yeah.
Like you don't wear black, well, then you're not goth. Well, you know, back in back in my day, we just wore whatever we wanted to, and we tried to be as different as possible. You know, we went to thrift
And
stores and found everything that mismatched and, you know, was just unique, right?
yeah,
That was the thing, is about being is how different can we all be?
I mean, like I watched. I can do this in comparison. Like I've watched Square Pegs, which is an '80s
Mhm.
show with like, what's that? Sarah Jessica Parker,
Yeah,
where she
yeah.
was like 4. She wasn't 4. She was like 10 or whatever. But
Yeah.
still, like she was so young, and seeing like all the different groups and what they were like all the jocks
Mhm.
were actually like these guys in biker jerseys or whatever, and it was like to see that and see how a person who was a jock in the 80s would be like a geek in the 2010s because they don't listen to hip hop. That's like, it's so weird. It's so weird to see how this kind of developed. And then I felt like in the early 2000s, it started to become aesthetic. So people are like, oh, you don't do the gothy aesthetic. Oh, you don't do the scene aesthetic. And it just became this whole image thing. And it's not that I actually, you know what? Nah, I'm gonna say it. I don't like fashion. I just don't. I think it's stupid for people to tell you what exactly you should be wearing.
Right.
I think that's so stupid.
Yeah.
Like it's illegal to not wear clothes. Why do
Right.
we need to why do we need to like make such a big deal about what person's wearing what? Or like even with makeup too, like who
Mhm.
cares? That person's wearing the makeup because they want to look like that. That's fine.
Right.
Maybe you don't want to look like that. That's okay too. But like,
Yeah.
don't judge that person just because they want to look like that. So I don't
Yeah.
know.
It's
It's become fashion to be, especially right now. It's like a goth fashion thing. Also, alt black, like alternative black people, is like a thing on TikTok.
mm,
So now there's this whole group of people who are kind of dressing like that, and some of them are just kind of doing it for the trend. And
yeah.
I get it. It's like that's kind of what we do in our teens. Is like we have to figure out our. We don't have to figure out our image, but we want to figure out our image. We
mhm.
want to figure out who we are as human beings. So some people just
And where
rely
we
on
fit.
subculture. Yeah, and some
Yeah.
people rely on subcultures for that. For me, I just went to every single scene I could to see which
hmm
ones I was more comfortable in, and
Yeah.
that's how I found my way here.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that didn't like I didn't understand the scene at first, but that doesn't mean that I didn't get used to it and
Right.
understand that like, oh, everybody's the same. There's always a
No.
horrible
What
person in one scene, and there's always like an amazing person in one scene. And if you just look in every single scene, you'll be okay. That's what I think.
what we talked about earlier, I can't remember if it was while we were recording or before we were recording, but you were talking about how one of the things that you really liked coming into this scene was that people will talk about music, that they're willing to discover new music.
Oh
Um,
yes.
yeah.
So in most of the scenes that I've been in, I've been around the hip hop scene in Canada. The problem with the hip hop scene in Canada is that they're trying way too hard to be like the hip hop scene in America.
Mm,
So the reason why someone like Drake would work is because he has an American manager, he had American producers, like he had the chance to work in American studios and understand sound, meet the people that he was inspired by in the hip hop scene, and make this whole thing happen. Like he had the right resources to make it sound like a good hip hop product. In Canada, I feel like a lot of people don't realize that there is great music here, and it's not an attitude to be into hip hop and all that stuff. So I think that's one thing, is that there is this attitude in the hip hop scene that I found in Calgary, I can say specifically, and not it's not as bad as it used to be. Like there
mhm.
is that they started to become more community based from what I've watched, and it's beautiful to watch because that's what you should be doing, is creating community as opposed to being competitive and creating separate type of things. But that scene is just not for me personally, just
Yeah.
only because people don't look at the style of music the way I do, which is I just want to listen to music.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with house music, the reason why I was attracted to it was because it you don't have to say, like I said in the beginning, you don't have to say anything. The scene was also just as welcoming as the
Yeah.
goth scene, but there's still those elitist people who think that, oh well, this isn't house music, this isn't house music, and they spend all their days trying to, especially, and it's annoying, it's going to hurt their feelings, but it's true that some of the people were old DJs from the 90s who can't get over the new way of doing things.
Oh, well,
And
house music goes back,
it
to the
does
'80s.
it does go back, but I'm just talking
Yeah.
about these
Yeah.
specific
Yeah. Yeah.
90s DJs who are running
Well,
clubs, and
well,
that they just say this is the way you're supposed to do house music. This is why this
yeah.
worked and whatever. When there's new and brand new things that come out every single day and come from different places, and I get it. I'm not saying to not look at the 90s DJs. I
Mhm.
love 90s house music and everything. It was just it became more elitist, and then it became
Right.
more about festivals, and
Yeah,
I
and I
love
think
festivals, but
it seems
sorry,
like
go ahead.
every scene goes through that. It starts
Yeah,
out being open and then eventually becomes elitist. Because
yeah,
I remember the beginnings of house music. Um, and in fact, somebody was asking about it on Facebook, and they posted a link to the WBMX radio station that was Oak Park, Chicago, which was basically where house started.
yeah,
Um, and they have up there on the SoundCloud, um, lots and lots of the the mixes. And going back and listening to them, it's like, wow, I forgot what that was like. It wasn't just, beat mixing from one song to another, right? So you play, 5 minutes and then you go in. It was like, here's a snippet of a song, and then it blends into the next one, after a minute.
Yeah.
And you don't even realize it changed, and then it changed again, and then it changed. It's like, oh my God, how these guys do that? It was amazing. But what you notice is that there was no like specific genre. It
No.
was, did it mix? Did it flow? Did it sound good? And that, so I just go, and I've talked about this in, I think, in some of my other interviews, but
Yeah.
I attribute my music today, the industrial that I like, to house music indirectly, because so back in the late 70s, early 80s, house music in Chicago was going, it was all like kind of like the way raves were in the 90s, right? They were kind of underground kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
And so Frankie Knuckles was one of the, the
biggest ones. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the people that worked with him was Dave Medusa. Dave Medusa went on to create a nightclub called Medusa's, which was basically like kind of a new wave club, but it was everything.
Mm-hmm.
The DJs there would mix all kinds of stuff. And the example that I always use to demonstrate just how it, what you call the music didn't matter. It's, can they mix it? Did it sound good? Can people dance to it? Was mixing Nitzareb and Salt and Pepper.
Yeah.
And then it just, it's not like something that cleared the floor. People were, you dance to it. I heard somebody make a comment one time, like, these DJs are so good that 3 minutes into a song, you realize you've been dancing to disco.
Yeah.
When you were listening to The Cure just a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
So
And
back in those days, it was all so open and welcoming and diverse,
mm-hmm.
all kinds of people.
Yeah, and that's like actually when I read that BC Boys book, that's
Yeah.
exactly what they were saying. They
Yeah.
said the hip hop heads were hanging out with the punk people because they're really excited about it. The punks were very excited about hip hop, and they just everybody went everywhere in New York, and then they got their music. They would all be listening to The Clash. They would all be listening to, like the early. I can't name an early hip hop hit off the top of my head, but they were
Africa
naming like
Bambaataa.
ones. They were naming ones before that. Like I was trying to name one like way before that.
Okay.
But yeah, like they were naming like all the ones, and they were in that scene, and they got picked up by what's his name? Oh my god, forgot his name. But yeah, they got picked up by Def Jam, and they were just it was like a free scene. Like everybody was so excited about the new genre, and then like there's like a little things that kind of made it worse, which was old disco sucks movement, which I still like to this day. I hate that movement. I hate it so much because it represented like more racism than anything that I've ever seen. It was from some radio DJ, and it created this whole buzz about disco, and they said it sucked. And I have some friends who are like, well, it did suck. And I'm like, well, no, that's not the point. They were burning R&B records that weren't even disco. They were burning like soul records and all this stuff just because it was black music. So
I've never thought about it that way. I mean, because that's something that Chicago has a history for, because the owner of the Chicago White Sox, big promoter, right? He would put on all kinds of stunts to get people to come out, and one of them was Burn Disco Night.
Yeah,
where they literally piled up disco records and burned them out in the field.
Yeah,
it didn't. I'm kind of embarrassed that it never dawned on me that
it was. Well, the thing
racist,
is that
but
on top of that, it was the disco clubs had Black people,
Hmm.
LGBTQ
Right.
people, that was their safe place to go.
Yes.
So it was on top of that, it was burning a whole scene down. That's what that whole movement did.
Yeah.
And then they banned it on actual radio. Disco was
Mm.
banned on radio. Hence the whole Italo movement and why
Right. 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 Right.
Italo was
Yeah.
so freaking big in the
Yeah.
80s was because of that.
Right.
Because you couldn't sell disco in America anymore. So you had to get your markets into into Europe because they
Right.
still loved disco. So and same with house. Like house came from an LGBT type of club.
Hmm.
On top of that, and it's just kind of like they treated it like it was gay music, and they made it into this whole. They made it into a stereotype as opposed to listening to it properly and like
Hmm.
actually seeing it. And all the good DJs who've made it were Black, and now it's all these white DJs that kind of made it. And we still like in the house scene, I give it to them because a lot of them still know about the Black DJs that created the genre and they really respect them. So I don't think it's that prominent in the house scene, but it's still a problem that everyone thinks that house music at one point was for gay music or for gay people, and then now it's just for people who like listen to Dead Mouse or something like that, you know?
Mm.
So it, that's like another thing on representation,
Yeah.
especially with music. Like that sucked to see, like to read about that and hearing how many people burnt those records. And you know, like that's kind of where I think hip hop aggression came from, was
Mm.
because people kept but they kept stealing the music, they kept burning it. So they used their own language, which is what that's their own slang. That slang wasn't just made up on the spot.
Hmm.
That's how they talked because people
Right.
wouldn't allow them to speak English at one point. So they had to figure out like how to talk amongst each other.
Yeah.
That's all Ebonics,
Yeah.
and
I
that's
mean,
all what how
right.
language works, right?
Yeah.
So
And that's I was listening to something the other day, talking about how that was just a natural evolution of the language that was a mixture of, African languages and English, just like
yeah,
you have Creole and stuff like that, right?
yeah,
So, but then they treat it like slang as opposed to a legitimate
it's
language or dialect.
it's a dialect
Yeah.
for sure, and people and the thing is that the reason why it can't be taught is because the way it came about
Hmm.
was that it wasn't taught. It was
Right.
that they had to figure it out because they were amongst each other and they had to speak English and they had to kind of put words together because at one point it was illegal for them to speak English. And then when they had a chance to speak English, they would go to school, they'd still be bullied, they would still be picked on just for being their skin color, they'd still be separated. Teachers refused to teach them, so they
Hmm.
still weren't getting the proper education. So it's kind of like it kind of came about like that. You know, they had to speak amongst each other, so they had to create their own language. So when people tell me that I need to speak like that, I get kind of mad because that's not how I was raised. Because
Right.
like my mom's from Uganda, so if anything, I should be speaking some sort of African dialect. But the reason why I'm not is because I was raised in Calgary, Alberta, and
Hmm.
I'm okay with being raised in Calgary, Alberta, and I'm not shunning any culture. That's just how I am, you know? So
Yeah.
sorry for that rant again. Go on like 11 rants a day.
Oh, that's all right. No, this is all, I mean, this is all good stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping a lot of people are watching this and learning a lot,
Yeah. And
thinking more. Just, I mean, I'm teaching a course called Managing Diversity, and so
mm-hmm.
we get into all kinds of stuff, and I read the students' reflections after class, and it's really great. No, seeing students reflect on, I didn't know about this, but now that
Yeah.
I do, I'll do this, and I'm more aware of this, and things like that. And so just getting stuff out in the open, like, in some of my other interviews, like with DJ Poe talking about growing up, in abusive household, right?
Yeah.
Allows people who also were abused to now feel they can, can speak about it.
Yeah.
So just, this is one of the things that I'm proud of, I think I can say, of this show that I've been doing, is that people sharing these very personal stories,
Yeah.
but
And
they're not entirely unique to them, because other people experience it too. And now when other people see that, hey, you know what, I'm not alone, it's
that
very powerful.
it's kind of cool. It's cool too. The only thing that I'm kind of upset with is that I still got to defend African Americans, although I'm Canadian. And
Mhm.
the reason why is because a lot of media in Canada, anything that has to do with Black people, it goes through the whole African American type of thing. So
Right.
it's kind of hard because now it feels like you're defending two countries, even though you live in one.
Hmm.
And it also feels like people think that you're going through like some sort of hardship when you're actually just middle class. Like I'm middle class.
Hmm.
Like I don't have that much money right now, but I am middle class,
Right.
and I'm not trying to brag about being poor. Like that's a total, like being poor in America is like a totally different thing from being poor in Canada. There's lesser well off areas in Calgary, and then there's like really really rich areas in Calgary, and
Hmm.
I lived in like the middle type of area, so it's kind of hard because we got the cable TV, and what you see is like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air because it's very popular, but that's an
Yeah.
American show. But that's my representation of what Black people is in Canada, so everyone just assumes that's what I'm like.
Oh, right.
So, and if I'm not like that, I'm called in blanks because I speak proper English. So, and then that's a diss to me, and that's a diss to them, because then it feels like they are not speaking proper English, even though they had to figure out how to speak English, and that's like just how they talk amongst each other. So it's kind of it's kind of hard because I feel like I have to defend two different, like I have to defend a lot of things, and I'm just making music that's like
Yeah.
nothing like that.
Yeah.
and and I love it. I like. Don't get me wrong. I love being who I am. I
Mhm.
don't regret anything that I'm doing. It's just it just feels like now I'm like some spokesperson without me
Right.
having to be one. You know.
Well, this
So
and I want to say this to everybody watching, that this is where, you know we as allies need to step up.
yeah.
Is, I hear this all the time, particularly on campus, right? My campus has a long bad history with race, and still has issues.
Hmm.
um, I mean, this is Charleston, home, the largest port for enslaved people arriving,
Yep.
right? um, but I hear from my colleagues, that people are tired of, anytime there's an issue, it's like, okay, let's let this African American person come up and you know speak for everybody. It's like, no, it's not up to somebody had to put it really well. It's like, we didn't create racism. Why should we fix it? Right?
Seriously, it's that, and it's also just go talk to them.
Hmm.
Just go and have a conversation with them. I swear to God, it's
Yeah.
not as bad as you think it is.
Right.
Go watch podcasts. Hip hop podcasts are the best because you get to hear a hip hop artist speak, and it's not glamorous. It's not like, oh, I make money or anything like
Hmm.
that. It's literally like you get to hear what they have to say about
Yeah.
anything. And if people actually watch interviews instead of watching the popular ones that everybody watches, you'll learn something. It's crazy how much you
Yeah.
learn from an actual artist and what they go through every day, and how they had to learn a new language just to be a normal human being or to be taken seriously. And it's sad that like like it, and it's crazy also because they had to have people who were fighting for them who spoke proper English who happened to look like them all the time, even if they didn't like each other. That's what they had to do. So,
well, first let's not call it proper English. Let's just call it what it is, white English.
well, I would say that. I would say that, but the English language, where it came from, like
Yep.
I'm going in those terms
Yeah.
because a lot of these people didn't speak that language when
Right.
they got
Well,
colonized. Right?
calling it proper suggests that anything else is improper.
Well, that's what they
Right.
have to go through every single day, though. Like
Right. And
that's what
that's
I'm
why I'm
saying.
saying let's not call it proper. Let's just call it white
No,
English.
no, I'm gonna say they call
Okay.
it proper English. That's what they're gonna call it, whatever.
Okay.
The reason why I'm saying it like that is because it's like there are dialects of English, and then
Mhm.
there's like English that comes from England and all that stuff, and it evolves wherever you go, and
Mhm.
it's evolved in Canada differently than it has in America, and it's still like, like certain people speak a certain way and other
Mhm.
people speak another way, so they think it's like whatever English they want to, whatever English they want to speak. And with the whole slave trade and everything, it was everybody was colonized, so it's kind of like these people were forced to speak it, but they weren't allowed to speak it. How does that make sense? So
Yeah.
that's what I mean. Like
Yeah.
they could have spoken it the way everybody wanted to speak it, but they weren't allowed to because they were slaves.
Right.
So like that's where the whole Ebonics comes from. It comes
Right.
from years and years of that, and it comes from years and years of people not refusing to educate people just because of their skin
Right.
color.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I would say it's not proper English, but it's a dialect. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's just the truth. Like
Right.
American English is so different in comparison to British English, of
Right.
course, because obviously if you're on a ship for 6 months, you forget certain things. Just saying.
Yeah.
And you start colonizing people, so it's everyone has a different way of teaching, so that's how
Yeah.
the English language teaches. So what people
Right.
think is proper, that's kind of what it is. And I'm not trying to dissent all those other people who
Yeah.
speak in like the Ebonics term, but like I wouldn't call it white English if it's all English is different, right?
Okay. That's fair enough.
Especially if you go to
Yeah.
Australia, Australian English is nothing like British English,
Right.
right? So there's different areas in the world, and
Okay.
it's just irritating. Like it's irritating that like people can't look at this angle like or look into the Ebonics language as
Mhm.
just like another version of English, because that's like that's like a traditional version of English.
Yeah.
But Ebonics is so we had to figure out English that's how it came
Right.
out. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying
Yeah.
with proper English. It's like you have to read it in textbooks.
Mhm.
You have to make sure all everything's spelled properly. It has to be grammatically correct so that the other person can understand you. That's
Mhm.
all you have to go through in school. With Ebonics, it was we were learning by talking to each other.
Mhm.
That's why so many languages in Africa are there's many languages in Africa because they learn by talking to each other. They
Right.
didn't used to write before. So
Yeah.
that's the whole thing of language. So
Yeah.
that's why I say proper English, because that's how people
Okay.
speak proper
Yeah.
English, right? So it's not a diss to Black people at all. It's just that's how they want you to speak, and that's how
Okay.
people want it to happen. Because if I would call it white English, I'm just like,
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know.
That maybe is not the right term. It's just
Yeah,
I was listening to How to Be an Anti-Racist, and
yeah,
there was a whole chapter on that. Um, about that difference, and I can't remember exactly how he referred to it, but he did talk about, how Ebonics, or they have another term for it, came about, and why it's spoken, and all that. But you mentioned podcasts,
yeah.
and since we're talking about language, what a podcast that I always recommend to people is Code Switch, which,
Yeah,
if people aren't familiar with the term code switch, it's changing how you talk depending on who you're talking to. But
yeah. I don't
the
do it.
right, but
I don't do
the
it. I don't care.
show just it's called code switch, but it's way beyond that, right?
Oh,
It's really getting into lots of issues around race.
it's
And
mainly, yeah, because
and
people don't
I've
take certain people serious just because they speak a certain way. So they have to
right,
code switch to show that they actually know what you're talking about.
right. But I've
So,
learned so
yeah,
much interesting history from this show.
yeah,
So I always recommend it. Like one of the things that I learned about was Miss Mary Hamilton,
yeah.
who went all the way to Supreme Court to be called Miss Hamilton instead of Mary in court. So she was down in the South, with Martin Luther King and all of them. And, so she was arrested plenty of times. And when she went to court, the white people would be called Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, and she would be called Mary. And so at some point she said, you know what? I refuse to speak until you properly call me Miss Hamilton. And she won the Supreme Court case for that.
So smart.
Yeah.
Well,
And so that was, I mean, that was a, interesting history lesson. And on top of that, that's also where the term Ms. came from, because it was apparently a archaic way of just writing, addressing something to someone when you didn't know whether or not they were married, right? So you don't know whether you say Miss or Mrs. And this was actually from the American Socialist Party, which she was a member of, and had gotten this letters from
interesting.
whatever, and it was addressed to Ms. Mary Hamilton because they didn't know.
Yeah.
And her friend was the person who started Ms. Magazine, and that's where that came from.
The thing I like
Which
about
is it's one of those things. It's like you learn some really interesting things. You learn the history of why marijuana is called marijuana,
yeah.
how it was,
I think like the thing I
made
like
illegally as a blatantly racist effort,
yeah.
and all kinds of things. So I recommend listening to it. I mean, it's a wide variety of things that they talk about. Um,
The thing I like about
yeah,
podcasts though
yeah,
is that it's not just that you have to like go to these podcasts that actually explain the history of Black
mhm,
slavery. It's that it's embedded in any single person who is Black in Africa, in America. Anyone
mhm,
who's Black in America, they have a story that's like very similar, and you don't even need to watch. You don't need to watch an educated video. Like all of them have like this story that you could actually pay attention to, and you can just be like, holy, I didn't even know that happened. And it's
mhm,
always a different story with a different person. Like one of my favorite comedians, and probably most people's favorite comedians, has always been Dave Chappelle.
mhm,
And it's because when he got out of like, he got out of what made me his favorite, what made him my favorite was when he got out of his Comedy Central deal, which he
mhm.
actually got back like yesterday, by the way.
Oh wow.
Um, he went to Africa because he just needed to like figure things out. Like he just wanted to go on a vacation. He came
Yeah.
back and all the news and articles were telling him that he was crazy, and he was told to go with the story because it's
Mhm.
easier. So they were trying to like kind of control the way he was doing stuff.
Yeah.
So what he did instead is that he laid low. Like he didn't end anything with Comedy Central. Actually, technically, he didn't end anything with Comedy Central, but he laid low. He said one of the best quotes that I've ever heard in my entire life. This wasn't inside the actor studio. He said, maybe 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 I'm not crazy. Maybe the environment is a little sick, which is explaining like how people try to control you in some
Mhm.
sort of atmosphere, especially when it comes to a certain tax bracket. But he was talking about that, and then also he was talking about how he just kept talking and talking, and he just stayed in like the underground, and he kept it underground. He made sure no one, he didn't make sure no one heard it. He made sure that he was doing what he loved, which was comedy.
Mhm.
And then until he got to a position that he was comfortable enough to release something, he released it like 10 years later, made back the money. Then he released 4 different ones and made back more money. And then he got into a position where he kind of got his money back for his comedy special, which is the Chappelle Show, which is really amazing. And it's cool to see that story, but also it's cool to see what most rappers say, because a lot of people don't take them serious. And if you go to an interview or if you go to a podcast, they just open up about everything. Like they're just like, you're just like, what? Like I didn't expect that. And that's the
Yeah.
thing, is like you can either look through it through music, which is not really a good, because that's entertainment, so it's
Mhm.
not always going to be good. But with podcasts, you actually get to learn about people. And that's what I think we should be doing more of, is not just looking at podcasts about the whole history
Mhm.
of education and all that stuff in those type of things, but also look up just look up some random person and see what they have to say. I've looked up not just people in the Black community. I've looked up people like Metric, and like, Metric was Canadian. I've looked up a lot of Canadian artists and I wanted to figure out how did they do what they had to do. And Metric is an interesting one because they're an independent label, and they've been independent since they started, and they're the most popular Canadian band in Canada.
Mm.
They've managed to stay independent for that long, and they've
Yeah.
managed to keep that longevity. And it's cool to see them say that. What made me happy is when I watched this interview and they're like, we just want to do exactly what we want to do. And
Mhm.
it gave me hope, because it was like, that was a independent artist in like 2004 in Canada making enough money to live. That's insane to me. So I don't know. I've always looked up to that. I've always looked up to Last Gang Records, which is another record label, which kind of made me want to start a record label in the first
Yeah.
place. Because sorry if I'm taking too long. I'll
Oh,
get through
that's
the
okay.
story really quickly. But
Yeah.
the Last Gang Records, they were trying to pitch. They were trying to pitch Metric, actually. They're trying to pitch Metric, and they were trying to pitch Death from Above 1979, which is also my favorite band. And they couldn't find anyone because everybody thought their sound was like a little weird. So they
Mhm.
started their own record label, and they called it Last Gang because I knew all record labels were gonna die. Which is pretty brutal to say, but
Yeah.
they were right. Because it's hard to start a record label in that age. And they used MySpace and all that stuff, and they've been promoting Canadian music for such a long time, and have gotten it to an international kind of avenue, which is really cool to see. So it's cool to hear those backstories of
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
to make it just by listening to a podcast. It's like, I think people should listen to more interviews and podcasts just to hear how people get to where they get to.
Yeah.
That's like literally the secret to most things, is just go to a podcast or listen to a podcast and see what they have to say, and even listen to the shittiest person that you know in the world, or not even the shittiest person that you know in the world, but what people said was the shittiest person to know in the world, and then realize that they aren't even that bad at all. It's just this perception of them has
Right.
always been that they were this horrible person, you know?
Yeah.
So I recommend everybody
Yeah.
to check out podcasts in general for anybody.
Yeah. Well, also check out all my interviews.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
because you get to know you get to
Yeah.
know everyone. Like you get to know me too.
Yep.
Hi.
Yep.
And you get to know like all the other DJs who've been probably DJing for like 20 or 40 years. I know DJ Star Noir has been doing it for a very long time. I know MB3 J Shark has been
Yeah.
doing it for a very long time too. Jay Sark, sorry. But yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Like it's just good to listen to other people and see their
Yeah.
perspective of things, because you never know what you'll learn.
Yeah. Yeah. I was surprised at the positive reception to all of these. Um, Everybody, I keep asking people, what is it that you like? And they're like, well, they're interesting. Okay. That they're learning more about people. You
It's-
know,
I feel like it's
so
just because we've had this culture of learning people in 5 minutes.
yeah,
So it's cool to hear someone talk for
more
like
in depth. Yeah,
40 minutes about where they came from and
yeah,
how did they get to that place. And like that stuff to me matters
yeah,
always, just to hear, why does this person do this? Like, why is this
yeah,
person on Twitch just like with a fan the whole night? Like, what
right.
what are they doing?
Yeah.
It's
Well,
cool
that
to hear that. So
yeah. Well, that's why I always do encourage, the DJs to, in between songs, tell, just a short story, because over time that adds up,
yeah,
right?
it's true. And I've actually followed people just because of their short stories
Yeah,
on Twitch. And I
yeah,
followed a couple people who are gamers because of their short stories, because
mm,
they made you feel like you can talk to them.
right.
And that's kind of why I'm like slowly building up this mic thing, because I do like I just feel very uncomfortable telling people right away who I am. If it's one
Mhm.
on one like me and you, it makes a little more sense, because it's just kind of like, oh well, it's fine. But like for me, it's the fact that like you don't know how people will take that information that gets me very uncomfortable, because you trust I do trust people with all my heart, that like I'm not trying to hurt anybody, and what I'm saying is more catered towards just doing whatever I'm going, well, it's just whatever I'm going through. And
Yeah,
like, and I do want to talk more, but I also sometimes just want to sit there and listen to music.
yeah,
you know Sometimes I just want to be like, you know what, let's just have a party and listen to music all day. And
yeah,
I think it should be, I'm trying to find the balance of both.
yeah. Well, yeah, you just keep experimenting and seeing what works, what feels right to you, and what gets the, best, the response that you like. Not
Yes.
necessarily the best response, but the response that you like, that you want,
Yes, it's
right?
mostly out of your control. Ooh. It does get intense though, because you do want to keep people, even though
Mhm.
you say one bad thing and they hate you, and you're just like, I just, I can't, you missed one comment. I've missed one comment before and gotten a huge rant, like just,
Yeah.
it was
Well,
like pages long, and I had to be like, I just didn't see your comments, and I don't know
yeah,
how to describe it any more than that. There's 100 people on the chat, and
yeah,
I'm trying to get to every single person, and I sometimes miss
yeah, you
them.
can't.
And
I mean, it's uh, there's a lot going on when you're trying to do a stream.
yeah,
That's why people have moderators
yeah,
to help
and
out with that.
I'm looking for moderators. If anyone wants to
Yeah.
moderate on my channel, that'd be awesome.
Well,
But
when are your shows? Do you have a regular schedule?
ooh, host, I mean, promo. So what I had to start doing is, because it was sporadic at first.
Hmm.
So before that, I would just go hang out at someone's channel, and I'll be like, hey, I'm just gonna throw an after party. Do you want to come to it? So I created that whole after
Yeah.
party vibe. And then people were just like, you have it too late. Can you just have it earlier? So I started doing Wednesdays at, it used to be 10:30, but then people didn't show up to my 10:30 Wednesdays. So I just did
10:30 Mountain.
12:30 on Wednesdays, and I just hung out at some other people's channels. And then on Thursdays, I used to do it at 1 o'clock. I used to go on DJ Tower's channel, and I'd be like, hey, if you want me to go on, I can go on. And he'd be like, yeah, sweet, we can hang out again. And we would just talk about music for the rest of the night. And then so that's just on call. So I have Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. Those are the days that are on call.
Okay.
And I say on call as in like people request me to go on, I'll go on. Um, and then because I don't want to flood it, I actually feel like there's so many DJs
Yeah.
that I want to check out, that I feel better if I don't flood the market with my everyday
Yeah.
shows, and I show
That's
you every once in a while. So
that's what I was doing when the short time I was DJing, was I was DJing in the middle of the night, because I didn't want to compete with the people that I was following.
exactly
So
what
it
I was
was only
doing
that,
too.
yeah, that
Exactly what
little
I
bit
was
of
doing
time,
too.
4 in the morning, when, when there was a lull, or in the middle of the day before, even before the Europeans are, active or whatever, but
Yeah,
there's hardly a time when there isn't somebody on.
now
Yeah.
that you discovered Australia.
Yeah.
No, I'm just joking. I love Australia. I love it. I love Australia, and I love the German people. Der Schwarm, thank you so much for making me a part of your team.
Oh, cool. Cool.
I love you guys, but it's a hit or miss. So I try to do Wednesdays at 12:30. Fridays, I say one estimated time of arrival,
Okay.
because some Fridays there's so much going on that I don't even want to compete.
Yeah.
So,
and so to clarify, this is mountain time.
yeah, these are mountain times.
Okay.
So
add
so
2 hours for Eastern and subtract 1 for Pacific.
yes. So I would say it is 3 a.m. Eastern time. Let's do Eastern time for now, just because, Eastern people. So it's 3 a.m. for on Fridays, but that's estimated time of arrival, because there's so much going on. I don't want to really compete.
Right. So is Saturday, that Friday going into Saturday?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Yes. Saturdays, I just don't compete.
Yeah.
Saturday is a day where there's so much going on that I'd rather watch than compete. So it's just not fun for me to try and get an audience to come to my after party. I think it's way better if we're craving an after party as opposed to me forcing you to come to my after party. So I keep Saturdays like, no, I'm not competing. Sundays is the early day. This Sunday I'm doing, or damn it, Valentine's Sunday, I did it at 5:30 because I had a show to raid to. But the next Sunday I usually do at 8:00 p.m., which is 10 o'clock Eastern.
Okay.
And yes, I try to keep it like that, and I try to keep it like word of mouthy, so it creates like a after party vibe where someone invites you over and you come hang out. So I don't over promote it. And the reason why and it's purposely done that way so that I can slowly build a community, as opposed to people just throwing themselves at me and me trying to monitor all these people and everyone's telling me their demands and all that stuff. I really want to create this community of people who are willing to just like share their music every once in a while, or listen to me play my music every once in a while. And can I actually explain my show a little bit more?
Absolutely.
I don't think I really went into it. So I have a thing called the request line after party. And at first it started out as a request line. I would ask people to just do requests all night, and we would talk about music. So it was like 10 or 15 people. Sometimes we would play like Spice Girls, and just because like, no one's here, so we can play whatever we wanted. Sometimes I would just get bored and I just want to listen to like random pop music I used to listen to in the 90s. And sometimes I do that. Sometimes it got like weirdly into the goth side, and I don't mind it. I actually enjoy it because I'm discovering a lot more music from the 80s and 90s, and that's what I want to discover. But yes, I'm just like, it's just like I said, it's just kind of like requesting and all that stuff. And then I have the DJ set, which is a non-request DJ set. So the reason why I do that is because I rather have a request line where everyone requests everything and me DJ what I like to listen to. Just it's kind of like the balance of the whole thing.
Right.
And then I have my shuffle. So the shuffle is there because I used to listen to my iPod on shuffle, and it reminded me of like when I used to like the song for the very first time, because you don't know what's coming. Because every time I knew what was coming, I was just like, whatever. But when I didn't know what was coming, I was like, I forgot how good this song was.
Right. Yeah.
So sometimes I just put my YouTube music on shuffle, see what exactly I have on here. I'm like, how come I don't listen to this more?
Yeah.
And I just get addicted to music again. So the on shuffle days are on Sundays, the early days. And I usually do last time I did a New Order catalog because I wanted to like look at the whole New Order catalog. So I went from beginning of Joy Division to the end of New Order, kind of went into the side projects like electronic.
Right.
So I'm trying to do more of that, but also I'm just kind of trying to keep it casual because it is an after party, and I want you, I want it to feel so casual that you're just like, man, I remember this song for a long time, or holy crap, where did you get this music from? And I'm like, well, I don't know, I just looked, because that's what I do. I just look for music. So
Yeah.
yeah, I try to the Sunday nights are my favorite because my friends that tell me that they can't stay up late show up.
Yeah.
So they're there till like 11 o'clock, and then I just go into a DJ set usually from
Okay.
like 11 o'clock to like, one time I went for like 10 hours. I don't
Wow.
know, sometimes it just ends at 10 hours because, especially lately, because people are starting to raid me a lot more. So,
Oh yeah.
and I'm not used to that attention. I'm just used to like the 4 people that come to my channel all the time, and
Yeah.
I appreciate those people because all they're doing is coming to my channel all the time. So
Well,
yeah,
after
that's my
this airs, you'll end up with a bunch more followers.
hopefully.
Yeah.
Follow me.
Yep. Yep.
Yes, I also have music too.
Yeah. And where can they find that music?
You can find it on Bandcamp. So it's jhnn.bandcamp.com, and it's everywhere. It's like on every single platform. You can find it on Spotify. Please follow me on Spotify because then you can find my name easily. People are telling me to change my name. I'm not going to change my name. I'm just going to get more people to follow me, and then eventually it'll get up there.
Yeah.
I think that's a more organic way for people to discover me. So, because you can't discover me if you're not looking for me. So I just want people to look for me. I get that it's a hard process for like 2 seconds to look for JHNN, but I'm just saying, like, I'll give you the link if you really are interested in listening to my music, because I would love more people to listen to my music outside of Calgary. I love all the people in Calgary, but I would love more people to just relate to me, especially shout out to all the alternative Black people. Please, please listen to my music. I make this specifically for you because I really want you guys to feel like you can be included in these type of scenes. Because and I don't want to make this into like a, I want you to be included, like you're welcome into these type of scenes, as opposed to like, oh, well, let's all get together and create our own scene. That's not necessarily what I'm going for. I'm going for more, come on, you're welcome into these scenes, you identify as this, but just be, you're welcome. Just come and hang out and be yourself. Because I really, this is not about you. This is really not about you. Just putting that out there, but I really hate being the token of anything. I hate it. So, and you asked me, and I was really happy to be a part of this. So I'm not talking about you. I'm just saying in general, I would love if more people like me who look like me could fight some of the battles that I'm fighting.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I do plan to interview Shannon Funches. She has already agreed.
Nice.
I just have to get it set up.
Nice.
I'm hoping to get it set up soon. So, and I'm looking for more. The other interview I'm doing soon is, and I can't remember, I don't know how they pronounce it. I have to figure it out, but Hasatea, it's Star Noir and her partner, and they've started a nonprofit specifically to support more diversity in the arts.
Oh, fuck yeah. They're epic, and I really do appreciate them so much. They really did help my channel a lot. Like once they started going to my channel, it got a lot of people in, and I was really shocked to see the amount of people who started to come to my channel regularly, because I'm just so used to having like 10 people who request the same songs over and over again. Now I have a bunch of people.
Music that way.
Yeah. Well, Well, that's why sometimes I had to put it on shuffle, because I
Yeah,
felt
yeah.
like we were listening to the same music all the time. So I'd be like, all right, 2 hours of shuffle, we need to listen to something new. But now I can really dig deeper into more people and discover more things with this new thing. I'm kind of scared of doing a request line now. I've been doing DJ sets because the request line requires me to go through so many different songs,
Mm.
and I usually organize them so it sounds like it's kind of seamless. I'm like, oh, this sounds like you know how you're talking about the house, the
All right,
going
right.
to those
Yeah.
house shows and hearing Nitzer Ebb with Salt and Pepper. Like that's kind of what I'm trying to do, but kind of like, giving people some sort of thing and then moving on to another type of
Mhm.
genre and moving on. Like that's what I try to do for the request line.
Yeah.
But yes, I think all I was just trying to say is I'm happy that she has supported me this much, and she's kind of followed her word, because she's told me that she wanted to do this. The very first thing she said when she saw my channel was,
Yeah.
I need to support the hell out of you because you don't get that much representation. So I really do appreciate DJ Star Noir for everything that she does. I know, like, I've told her that millions of times, and she probably is just like, yeah, whatever. I'm like, but seriously,
Yeah.
it's very, especially me being in Canada, it feels weird trying to pitch your music to other people who just don't who act like they understand it, but they don't
Yeah.
really understand it. And it's weird how the goth scene's so just, oh, this sounds cool, I'm into it,
Right, right.
as opposed to like, I don't know, like I don't know, that doesn't, like, you know what I mean? Like they go through well, we're looking more for the country side of things,
Yeah.
and you're like, well, but I'm a representation of Alberta too,
Yeah.
so it's good to have people represent what you love.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
shout out to her, and shout out to that whole, I need to figure out what that is too, by the way. So if you do have the link, can you send it to me too?
Yeah. Yeah. If you go to Star Noir's page, I think
It's
she's
probably
got it
on there.
linked on,
Yep.
in there.
Okay, I'll probably check that out too.
Yeah. But we are, believe it or not, going on almost up to 2 hours.
Oh yeah, I know.
So
Sorry, I ranted.
no, that's fine. This is great. I mean, this means it's been interesting, because
Sorry for saying sorry. I'm Canadian.
if it wasn't interesting, then it probably would have ended a while ago.
Yeah,
But I do
that's
want to bring it to an end so it's not too long. And so I'll ask my usual closing question, which is, what gives you hope?
what gives me hope. I don't know. Like I think seeing what Dave Chappelle, like, I know I just talked about this, but seeing that Dave Chappelle really stayed silent and talked when he needed to talk and tried to figure it out by doing exactly what he wanted to do, which is comedy. He went into comedy stores and did exactly what he needed to do to get his power back. That's amazing to me.
Mm.
That's so awesome. And he reaches an audience that, like, it doesn't matter who it is. And I don't want, I want the I want everybody to be a part of it, but I also want everybody to not feel like they have to be something to be a part of who I am as a person. So
Mm.
what gives me hope is anyone who's like just into music just for the music. Those are the people that I always strive to look for. Those are the people that I feel like just understand me for what I try to do. And I'm not trying to impress anyone. I'm just trying to listen to music in my room, just like I did when I was 10 years old. That's the goal. That's the goal. I'm not trying to look good. I'm just listen to my music, guys. Don't worry about my camera. I know you want to see my face, but listen to my music.
Yeah. All
And
right.
not my music in general. I just mean like whatever I'm listening
You're
to.
playing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Sorry.
All right. Well, thank you for taking your time to speak with me. It's
Oh, no problem.
been
Thank you for
great.
asking.
So we'll talk after this about exactly when this will air. But whenever this does air, we will be rating, and looking forward to hearing you play. Well, hearing your,
Sweet.
yeah, hearing
I'm
what you're,
excited.
what we're going to experience. So
Thank
we'll
you.
find out in a few
All
minutes.
right.
All right.
Woo, bye, everybody. Or see you in a few minutes, everybody.